Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to today's video. This episode will guide you through the issues of the Uncanny X-Men published by Marvel Comics in 1981. Issue number 141. Welcome to New York, the Big Apple. Once upon a time, it was a nice place to live, but this is no longer the case. It is now a derelict urban wasteland. Welcome to the future, as it is now the 21st century. The woman making her way through this mess is Kate Pride. When she was a child, this was one of the nicest neighborhoods of the city. But nowadays, it is dangerous here. The only reason she is here is because she's heading to the rendezvous point the man called Logan had picked. Kate just wishes he had picked a safer spot. Then again, there isn't really any safe spot to pick in Manhattan anymore. This is now rogue territory, the last place the Sentinels would expect a mutant, especially an X-Men to be, which is why Logan picked this area for their meetup. And just as Kate thinks to herself this place looks peaceful enough, she triggers the trapdoor and tumbles down. This cannot be happening now, she thinks, not when they were this close to pulling it off, and not with so much depending on them. As she's lying on the ground one story below, she's being welcomed by 3 rogues. She tries to scare them away by saying they had better let her go because she's on official Sentinel business, but they don't care. They hate those robots almost as much as they hate the muties. She can beg and scream all she wants because no one will come to help her, if they would even hear her. These rogues will make sure that this mutie will have a slow and painful death. But Kate is no slouch. As the leader of these rogues makes his way towards her, Kate kicks him in the stomach. She has to rely on her fighting skills now, because since she's being forced to wear this inhibitor collar, she can't use her powers to phase through solid objects anymore. She is now just like any ordinary woman. The leader of the rogues is telling the other rogues to come help him, but as he looks behind him, he sees they have been taken out already in the meantime. Wolverine has entered the scene. He tells the rogue to let Kate go, just like she had asked. But Big Alex ain't taking orders from anyone on his turf. And Wolverine takes care of him real fast, without using his claws like he would have done in the old days. There's no use of triggering the Sentinels and making them aware of Wolverine's presence in the city. That would certainly jeopardize the mission. He checks up on Kate, who is fine but would like to not be in situations this close to biting the bullet. Kate asks him how things are in the Resistance, and Wolverine informs her about an upcoming full-scale nuclear strike once the Sentinels move out of North America. There is a power struggle going on, and the powers that be are playing for keeps. It will be up to the X-Men to make sure this attack will not be necessary. Wolverine then grabs some device out of the pocket of his jacket, and it's the last component of a thing they refer to as the jammer. Just like the components before this one, Kate should not have any trouble smuggling it into the camp, because it's invisible to the Sentinel scanners. Easy for Wolverine to say though, since he is not the one doing the smuggling. They say their goodbyes, and Logan tells Kate that Phase 2 starts at midnight, when he will bust them out. Kate lets him know that they will be waiting and thanks him for his efforts. As she makes her way to the place she now calls her home, she doesn't bother with hiding the sorrow in her eyes. Life in North America is now so different from what it used to be, and she wonders how so much could have changed so fast. How could have things gone so wrong? Nowadays, humanity is divided up in 3 groups, as indicated by the obvious letter on the clothes they wear. H is for baseline humans, clean of mutant genes, and they are allowed to breed. A is for anomalous humans, a normal person but possessing the mutant genetic potential. They are forbidden to breed. The letter M stands for mutant, and they are the bottom of the heap. Pariahs and outcasts. Thanks to the Mutant Control Act, effective since 1988. Mutants got hunted down by the government and, with a few rare exceptions, killed without any form of mercy. In the 25 years following the passing of this act, literally millions have died. Kate now believes that they were actually the lucky ones. As she has made her way to the gate of the South Bronx Mutant Internment Center, she has to report to one of the sentinels standing guard. It doesn't address her by her name, but by the derogatory designation of Mutant 187. It tells her to explain herself, because she's late and behind schedule. Kate tells it that she was being attacked by rogues, but she managed to escape, and that is what caused the delay. The sentinel scans indicate that she's not lying, and she's allowed to pass. She then gets examined in an exhaustive and intentionally humiliating way, for security reasons, making sure that she's not carrying any contraband. Kate is now allowed to re-enter the camp that has been her home since the turn of the century. As always, the first thing she sees is the cemetery, and there always happens to be a new, fresh grave. She knew some of the people lying here. Most of them she didn't, but they are all regarded as family, and they all fell victim to the Sentinels. In her mind, Kate asks them for forgiveness, because the ones who now remain cannot avenge them. There is no real point in vengeance against an unfeeling machine, she thinks, as she passes the graves. But what they can do is to try and ensure that this nightmare never happens, that this nightmare will never even begin. Out of all the X-Men who ever were, only 4 remain: Logan, Kate, Aurora, and Piotr. They, along with Franklin Richards, the last survivor of the fabled Fantastic Four, and his lady Rachel, who is a telepath and telekinetic, are the core cadre of the anti-Sentinel resistance. Kate greets the others and explains why she's late. She tells them that Logan will strike at midnight. Phase 1 must be completed by then, she says. Piotr mentions how normal they make it all sound. Yet, what they plan on pulling off is so fantastic that he still cannot believe it's possible. He then gets told by a man approaching them in a wheelchair that is strange talk, coming from someone who has seen and done what he has. Piotr tells this old friend of his that he has always been a simple man, more of a farmer than a superhero, and he simply cannot shake his doubts. The man he's talking to is Magneto, and he tells Piotr that if there had been any other alternative, they would surely have taken it. If they don't act now, however, the world will be at war by tomorrow. And the day after that, the world will be dead. Their actions may not be able to make things better for humanity or mutant kind, but they will certainly not make them any worse either. He then addresses Rachel and tells her that so much depends on her. She tells him that she will not fail. She has been meditating all day long, and once the jammer is operational, they can start anytime. Kate asks what they are waiting for, and Piotr then grabs his wife by her shoulder from behind, and he expresses his words to her. With what they have planned, they are toying with the basic fabric of reality itself. He wonders that if things will change so much, what will happen to their love? Will that cease to exist as well, along with the Sentinels? Kate tells him that's the risk they have to take. What does the love of 2 people matter against the lives of billions, she asks him. Piotr tells her that he is selfish, because it actually does matter to him. Kate says that if their love was meant to be, it will be. Only this time around in a world where their children can grow free and won't have to be afraid. These Sentinels killed her friends and her babies. If changing the past presents the slightest hope of saving them all, she will do so, no matter what the cost. Sometime later, Franklin is making the final adjustments to the jammer. This device should be able to neutralize the power inhibitor collars they are all forced to wear, allowing them to use their powers once again. In this room, within the range of the jammer, and only for as long as the device's power cells are functioning. Magneto says that they will be freed from those collars before the power cells stop working. Rachel then tells Kate to lay back and relax. Kate is now starting to feel butterflies in her stomach, but Rachel tells her to be quiet and to breathe along with her, to let her mind become one with hers, and theirs with all. And before Kate even realizes it, her soul is thrown across the abyss of eternity, and what happens next is anybody's guess. At the present day, October 31st, a Friday in 1980, is the final day of one of the closest and hardest fought presidential elections in recent history. For the Uncanny X-Men, however, it's an ordinary day like any other, beginning with a strenuous combat workout in the Danger Room at the Mansion, which functions as their headquarters. Posing as a school for gifted youngsters, this is where they secretly hone their mutant powers to the best of their abilities, under the tutelage of their mentor, Professor Charles Xavier. The room is called the Danger Room for a reason. It is no place for the uninitiated, such as their newest and youngest member Kitty Pryde, who goes by the codename of Sprite, to just walk in. And Kitty is about to find out just that. She got sent up by Nightcrawler to tell the rest that he got held up in the kitchen. Since the door was unlocked, Kitty figured they had not started their training session yet, and that it was still safe to walk inside. But Wolverine informs her that that door is always unlocked. With this being the first time Kitty steps into an activated Danger Room, she is overwhelmed by all that's going on. She freezes in her steps and can't hear the others telling her to get out of the room fast. She doesn't even have to open the door. She should be able to use her phasing powers and just walk through the walls. But she can't. Since she is not responding, nor moving, Angel figures he should just go and grab her and bring her to safety, not realizing, as Wolverine points out, that the room's computers will track his movements and will bombard him with threats wherever he goes, jeopardizing Kitty even more. Being distracted, Wolverine's head almost gets cut off by the robot he was fighting with, as he only barely manages to get out of the way and it cuts his suit instead. Storm manages to create a whirlwind, which pulls Kitty out of harm's way just as the room was firing rockets at her. But this safety will only last momentarily, because for as long as Kitty remains in an active Danger Room, she remains in deadly danger. And this goes for the rest of the X-Men, who now have to look after another one of their members as well. Storm then tells Colossus to take Kitty, while everyone else should try and reach the room's panic button. She is officially canceling this training session. Kitty's safety has priority over them successfully finishing this session. Colossus, who realizes that the speed with which Kitty is being hurled at him with might cause her to get injured if he catches her in his organic metal form, so he changes back into his human form for him to be able to catch her safely. But first, he has to make sure that his surroundings are safe to begin with. Point in case, he uses his strength to wreck the hydraulic pressure panel he was testing himself with. As Kitty falls into his arms, she asks him if she will be in trouble, and Colossus jokingly tells her that she probably will be, if she survives this. But Kitty takes that comment very seriously. The room then counters Colossus' attack by launching a panel from the ceiling, which acts as a massive pile driver, and he only has a split second to react to that. But before he can even begin to move, a burst of flame, coupled with the stench of brimstone, enters the room, followed by the appearance of Nightcrawler himself, who has teleported himself to where the panic button is located, and he presses it just in time. Had he arrived a little later, both Piotr and Kitty would have gotten squished underneath the panel, and the two of them are very aware that this might have been the outcome if Kurt had not arrived when he did. Storm then asks Kurt what took him so long in joining them for this training session, and he apologizes and tells her that the morning news broadcasted an interview with Professor Xavier, covering today's so-called mutant hearings in Washington, which caught his attention and he just lost track of time. Storm then tells him to not let it happen again, And she also tells Sprite to never come through this door when the warning light is on the outside. Kurt tries to mediate and gain Kitty's sympathy by sticking up for her, but it doesn't really work. Kurt's demonic-looking appearances, which he was born with, still scare Kitty. Wolverine notices this, and Kurt tells him that he's used to a reaction like this from strangers. But whenever he gets a reaction like this from a friend or fellow teammate, it genuinely hurts his feelings. Aurora then tells him to be patient with her, that she still has so much to learn. Since Kitty's first training session was also scheduled for this morning, the team has moved themselves up to the control booth, and Storm instructs Kitty on what to do. Whenever she is ready, this training exercise will start, and all she has to do is reach the other side of the room. Wolverine tells her to not get too excited, because it won't hurt. A lot. But Kitty does get excited. She knows the room is set on low power, so that it can't really hurt her, but she's still nervous. Scared even. Knowing fully well that they all believe she can do it, she cannot let them down now. She is shaking as she takes her first step, but her confidence slowly increases with every step. Nothing seems to happen to her, and she simply phases through every single threat the danger room throws at her. And when trapdoors in the floor open up, she doesn't fall, but walks on the molecules of air right above it. She makes it all the way through the room with not a single scratch on her. The other X-Men in the control booth can't help but laugh at the fact that Xavier spent weeks on programming the room to really test Kitty's abilities, and she just literally walked through all of it and could have done so with her eyes closed. When Kitty opens the door to walk outside the room, she asks Storm how she did, and Storm tells her that she did amazing. But then, suddenly, reality for Kitty twists inside out, as she comes face to face with an older version of herself, an older, sadder, wiser and stronger looking version. And then, her soul gets flung out over the abyss of eternity as well, and in her mind, she screams out. But the X-Men do not hear that. All they hear is the sound of her body dropping on the floor. Storm tells Nightcrawler to teleport down to her immediately and asks how she is. After a quick examination, Kurt can inform her that Kitty is still breathing, and that her pulse is strong and steady, but she does look stunned. Storm says that that's pretty much impossible, because they would have seen the stun beam, and besides that, she shut down the room systems the moment Kitty reached the door. She tells Kurt to take her to the infirmary for a more in-depth examination. Storm doesn't express it, but she's getting real worried about Kitty at this point. After a full scan, they soon find out that Kitty is fine physically, but they still don't know why she collapsed, and Storm asks why she's still unconscious. When Angel tells Aurora to calm down, because Kurt said that Kitty is okay, Wolverine tells him that he is getting some weird readings when scanning her brain, and when he compares it with the ones in Kitty's Medifile, he can tell that the basic pattern is the same, but these new readings are more complex. Wolverine doesn't have the knowledge to tell what it means, but maybe Xavier or Moira will be able to do so. Something definitely happened to Kitty, but they are not sure on whether they have been attacked or if they are overreacting. Kurt lays his hand on Kitty's forehead as she starts to come to, and she immediately jumps up and starts hugging him, yelling out how it's really him and how he is alive. Confused at all of this, both with Kitty hugging him and with what she said, Kurt asks her what else he would be other than alive. All Kitty can say is that she made it, and that she can tell that she's in the Medilab in the mansion in Westchester. Kurt tells her that she's not really making any sense, and tells her to lie down and rest, but she responds by saying that she can't. There's no time for any of that. She then notices Warren, Aurora and Piotr in the room as well, and says that this is incredible. Rachel had already told her that she could do it, but Kitty herself didn't believe Rachel would be able to pull this off. Colossus asks her who this Rachel is, and Storm wants to know what she pulled off, as she calls her kitten. A term of endearment which Kitty says she hasn't heard in years. This doesn't make any sense to Aurora, and she asks Kitty if she's alright. She tells Aurora that she's fine, but that she's not Kitty though. Her name is Kate, and she explains that this body she's in is being inhabited by the persona of the woman she will be in 30 years from now. That she's from the future. Storm is questioning the validity of the statement and says that she thinks that Kitty is just tired and has been overwhelmed by a rough morning and had a heart shock. Kitty then asks Storm if she thinks that she's just concussed and hallucinating then. And she tells her that it's ironic how Storm was the one telling her in the future that the hardest part of this operation would be to convince them of the truth. Kitty then becomes a lot more convincing. She tells everyone that on this day, on Halloween in 1980, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants will murder presidential candidate Senator Robert Kelly, along with both Professor Xavier and Moira McTaggart. And not only that, but Kelly's assassination will set in motion a sequence of events that will culminate in the destruction of the world some 30 years from now. And Kate is now here to stop that nuclear holocaust from happening. Wolverine can tell by the way Kate talks, moves, and even smells that this woman talking to them is indeed no longer the teen Kitty Pryde. He tells Storm that his instincts tell him that she is indeed telling the truth. Kate then asks Storm if she can really stand idly by while Kelly, Xavier, and Moira get murdered. And Storm says that no, she can't, and they will go to Washington straight away and will bring her along. When there, Xavier can telepathically mind-scan Kitty and determine what's going on exactly. Warren has arranged for his privately owned jet to take all the X-Men to Washington in a hurry. As the master of one of America's larger fortunes, this is easily arranged by him. While aboard the cabin of the plane, Kate tells the rest about the sequence of events which will happen after the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants assassinated Senator Robert Kelly in Kate's past. She first tells them that Senator Kelly is a decent man, with legitimate concerns about the increasing numbers of superpowered mutants in the world. The Brotherhood set out to teach humanity to fear and respect the power of mutants, also known as Homo Superior. But their plans backfired though. After the assassination of Kelly, mutants did indeed become feared, but not respected at all. What they got was fear and hatred instead. At first it was thought that the sentiments toward mutants was a form of hysterical paranoia which would pass, but it didn't. With the presidential elections of 1984, a fierce anti-mutant candidate was put into office, and within a year, the first Mutant Control Act was passed. But the Supreme Court deemed it as unconstitutional. The administration then responded by reactivating the Sentinels and giving them an open-ended program with fatally broad parameters. Their directive was to quote-unquote eliminate the mutant menace once and for all. These machines concluded that the best way to achieve this was to take over the country, and in the process they hunted down and destroyed not only the mutants, but also the non-mutant super beings, not discriminating whether they were heroes or villains. And by the turn of the century, the whole of the North American continent was under their complete control. They all tried to fight as hard as they could, but they lost. So many of them died, and seeing them all alive now is something which Kate can't handle. She didn't think that it would hurt this much, and she starts crying. For a while, that is all the sound that's heard in the cabin. Until Kate forces herself to finish the story. She says that the rest of the world became more frightened of the Sentinels than it was of mutant kind. They threatened war if the Sentinels moved against them, but the robots, driven by their Prime Directive, are about to make that move. One of the surviving X-Men is a telepath, and she devised a plan to psychically exchange the mind of one of them with the counterpart in the past. And that is how Kate came to possess Kitty's body. She was chosen because at this point in time, Kitty had not been trained yet in psychic attacks. In her mind, Kate then thinks about her fellow X-Men, and how Wolverine is supposed to have freed the others by now, and she wonders how they are doing. As a matter of fact, in the year 2013, the X-Men, led by Wolverine, are making their way through the old subway tunnels below New York City. They will soon arrive in Manhattan. Kate is still unconscious, and Colossus, who is carrying her, hopes she remains this way. He feels that the less young Kitty knows what has happened to her, and what may happen to her, the better. He then mentions how he wishes they could have brought Magneto, who voluntarily sacrificed himself to cover for their escape. A noble death, but still one more death on their side. And Colossus is sick of all the dying. They then hear a sound above them. They have been found by the Sentinels, and Franklin Richards is instantly killed right in front of the rest as some form of warning. One of the Sentinels tells them to surrender or to face immediate termination, and that this is their final warning. Rachel is overcome by how she felt her man Franklin die in her mind, and she asks Storm to please help her. But Storm tells her that she can't yield to her pain and grief right now because they all need her. She tells Storm that she won't break and unleashes her fury in the form of her telekinetic powers on the Sentinel. The Sentinel she attacks get totally destroyed, but the other one warns the rest of the Sentinels by alarming Central Control and is requesting immediate reinforcement. It informs Central Control that the mutants they have made contact with are no longer wearing their inhibitor collars. Colossus tells Rachel to guard Kate with her life, as he and Storm start unleashing their powers on the second Sentinel as well. Storm uses her lightning on it, but it seems to be too well insulated. Colossus picks up Wolverine, and it has been a long time since they've used their combined fastball special technique. It has indeed been way too long, according to Wolverine, as he ejects his adamantium claws and starts slashing the Sentinel's metal apart. Fully aware that its body stands no chance against the strongest metal on Earth, from which Wolverine's claws are forged and his entire skeleton is covered with, it is almost as if the Sentinel fears what comes next. It does manage to grab Wolverine though, and even though it has been critically damaged, it is still functional enough to terminate Wolverine. Had it not been for Storm's presence, that is. Wolverine created an opening in the Sentinel's hull, and Storm is now able to strike it with her lightning bolt, basically frying the Sentinel's computer brain. In the meantime, the third Sentinel got taken care of by Rachel and Colossus. That's 3 down, but there's more where these came from, and Colossus can already see another Triad patrol right around the corner. They will have to leave this place fast, since there's pretty much a limitless amount of Sentinels available. It will only be a matter of time until they're overwhelmed, regardless of how hard or how well they fight. He then strikes the base of the hotel he's standing by just right, so that it collapses right on top of this next batch of Sentinels. The robots scream, and they sound frighteningly human. But Colossus does not care. He was once the gentlest of souls, but all that changed when all of his friends were slain by these Sentinels. And not just his friends, but his children as well. The only thing Colossus feels now is hate. With these Sentinels taken care of, the remaining X-Men will now make their way to the Baxter Building, the former headquarters of the Fantastic Four, back when they were still alive. It has now become the Sentinels' continental nerve center, and if they destroy it entirely, they will have crippled their forces. All Colossus can think of is his wife Kate and how he wishes her luck wherever she is, but he's not entirely sure who will need luck more, her or them. Back in the present day, over in Washington DC, at the Pentagon, we find a young woman called Raven Darkholm, who works at the Research and Development Department of Defense, and as such, has access to the most secret and sophisticated weaponry in America's arsenal. Over the years, she has earned this position and the complete trust of her superiors. But with Raven, there is far more than meets the eye, because her loyalty and appearance are nothing but an illusion. She is a mutant with the ability to shapeshift, a metamorph, and her comrades know her better as Mystique, the founder and leader of the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. This latest incarnation of the Brotherhood consists of Mystique's close friend Destiny, who can see the future with her psychic ability, Avalanche, who can create a tidal wave out of any solid object he crumbles first, Pyro, who has the ability to control flames as if they were alive, and the Blob, who recently escaped from prison and is the only current member of the original Brotherhood. Mystique bids them all a good morning and asks Destiny what the future holds in store for them. Destiny tells her that it's hard to tell with any form of certainty, because she senses a new variable, a new random element that could seriously affect their plan, and she has been unable to focus in on it. She can also sense that the Blob is uncomfortable, to say the least, with Mystique's leadership. This could become problematic. Mystique asks the Blob about it, and he tells her that even though he's grateful for the help he got so far, he doesn't take orders from a woman. Pyro asks him if he thinks he could do any better, while the Blob lights up a cigar. The Blob basically tells Pyro to shut up and that this is between him and Mystique. But Pyro then controls the flame coming from the Blob's match and tells him to watch his mouth and to remember his place, or next time he will create a fire demon that will cook him alive instead of just scare him. The Blob then grabs a piece of artwork from one of the cabinets, ready to smash Pyro's face in with it, telling him that he's had enough of him and that he's no amateur, that he was part of the original Brotherhood and worked side by side with Magneto. Avalanche, who simply reverts the statue to dust before he can strike Pyro with it, asks him if that was such an honor, how come he spent the last few years locked up in prison then? They then argue some more and Mystique tells them to quit their bickering. She tells the Blob that sure, she is not Magneto, but that he will find out that if he crosses her in any way, she can be as implacable and as deadly a foe as Magneto ever was. She then tells them all to prepare themselves, because the time has come for them to strike. Over in the United States Senate, the people have gathered to address an issue of critical, national and international importance. In the not-so-distant past, the Senate has seen some noble times and shameful ones. It has shown humanity's highest ideals, as well as the worst of realities. And today, the Senate has not assembled to perform a witch hunt, but to search for the truth. Much has changed over the recent years, and today, they now face situations and threats undreamt of by generations before them. One of these situations, or threats, is the appearance of Homo superior, otherwise known as mutants. Humans just like all of them, but possessing the power and abilities which set them apart, and some would even argue above, the rest of humanity. Among the witnesses of today's hearing are Professor Charles Xavier and Dr. Moira McTaggart, both experts in their own way on the topic of mutants and genetics, and Senator Robert Kelly introduces them as such. Moira whispers to Charles that she thinks that Kelly has already made up his mind, that it's registration of mutants today and their execution in gas chambers tomorrow. But Xavier tells her to be charitable and that Senator Kelly is simply scared. It is up to the two of them to show that Kelly's fear is unfounded. Xavier then sees the students coming through the door. Surprised to see them, he decides to contact them telepathically, and he asks Storm what they are doing here, and if something is wrong. Storm tells him that he could say that, and Xavier asks her to open her mind to him so he can read her thoughts and memories, which will be a lot more effective than her explaining everything to him. Storm is reluctant to do so at first, instinctively, but she does so anyway. After scanning Storm's mind, Xavier turns his psychic powers towards Kitty's brain, and what he sees in her mind turns him pale. In the meantime, a reporter spots Angel in the hearing room. The Angel's identity is known, as both Warren Worthington, the rich businessman, but also as the mutant Angel who used to bankroll a team of superheroes on the West Coast called the Champions not that long ago. As the hearing continues, Moira questions Senator Robert Kelly for the need of this hearing, and he tells her that it's fairly simple. He wonders if in a world with beings like Doctor Doom, Magneto, the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, and probably many, many more, there is still a place for ordinary men and women. And he wonders as well if the same question wasn't asked by the last Neanderthal about the first Cro-Magnon so many years ago. In other words, how long will it be before this next evolutionary step makes Homo sapiens as a species obsolete? While he says that, one of the guards in the room notices cracks in the walls, and they are spreading. He tells everyone to get out of here, to run for it, because this wall is coming down, right before it starts turning into dust and the whole wall collapses. And when all the dust settles, after the avalanche has passed, it becomes clear who are responsible for this happening. Mystique introduces herself to everyone there, and to the world at large, and she also tells them that she and her companions are the new brotherhood of evil mutants. She says that they are the future, and if anyone resists, they will expose themselves to danger. The Blob tells Senator Kelly that he's been babbling about the mutant menace a lot, and that they are here to teach Kelly the error of his ways. As the Blob moves forward, he quickly gets stopped in his tracks by a lightning bolt. A lightning bolt fired by Storm, of course. Colossus tells the Blob that they are the X-Men, but the Blob says that he doesn't recognize any of them, apart from the Angel, who is the only remaining original member. Wolverine tells the Blob that he is right, but that this current team of X-Men are better. Storm tells Mystique that if they mean to harm Senator Kelly or anyone else here, they will have to go through them. And Mystique responds that that will be a pleasure. And she orders her team of mutants to kill these X-Men. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. You can help growing this channel by liking, subscribing and sharing. This tells YouTube that the videos I'm making should be recommended to others and would be very much appreciated. See you next episode.